once we finally saw the board, the first reaction was, oh, it's big. It's really,
it's
really big.
Welcome to the Daktronics Experience Podcast. We are at Empower Field at Mile High, talking to the Denver Broncos about everything that we've got going on this year with brand new displays. And obviously something brand new in the background here is the main end zone that's 72 feet tall, and it kind of towers over the field. But first, we're going to talk to our guests here. We've got Russ Trainor and Hailey Sullivan. So, Hailey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself right away?
Sure. Hi, guys, and
Hi.
Thanks for having us. And what a beautiful statement piece to have in the backdrop. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for the Denver Broncos. I'm actually relatively new to the Broncos. I'm new to sports. So I've been in the job for about 7 months.
Okay.
Prior to this, I was living in LA working at a beauty tech startup. Prior to that, I come from actually a pretty long history of working in children's toys.
Okay.
So I've managed Barbie, which is everywhere right now,
I was gonna
Hot
say, it's
Wheels,
big now,
Fisher
yeah.
Price, yeah, Bratz, Little Tyke. So kind of a deep history in brand management and brand building, and now in sports.
Awesome.
Nice.
What kind of got you into sports, and what made you interested to kind of make that shift, I guess? Is it?
It's funny, there are more overlaps than you think. It's entertainment. It's entertainment. It's about engagement, right? From children engagement to fan engagement, building affinity and creating really just lifelong memories. When you think about, you can always think about the first game you've ever been to, first game you've brought your child, first time you experienced a win, right? It's not that different, slightly different tactics.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How's it been so far then since you've been here? You said, what, 6 months ago?
I've been
about,
seven months in the job. It's been a whirlwind.
Super easy.
Yeah.
Super easy. It's been a whirlwind. It's been exciting. So credit to our ownership, our president, Damani Leach, a lot of runway for us to try new things. So we're on the eve of our first home game, preseason game against the Rams. We have completely changed up our game day entertainment, trying out new marketing activations, really excited about the scoreboard, new graphics packages. So it's been awesome. It's been a lot, but in an energizing sort of way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
At least you had something nice and brand new for your starting is
Yes.
brand new
Who
technology.
doesn't like
right?
shiny new toys,
I was going
right?
to say, shiny
Yes.
new toys is always
Sure.
what we hear for our displays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said you never forget your first game. I think one of my first football games was actually at this stadium, just quite a few rows up, a little bit higher in the stands there. But it was my first experience, and the Broncos actually clinched the division against the Raiders that year at home.
Amazing.
So
there you go.
remember that one.
That makes it
sticks
even
out,
sweeter, right?
Yeah.
Divisional rival, better,
Yeah.
even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So maybe, Russ, we'll jump over to you then. Could you give us a little bit of background on kind of your role here with the Broncos and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. It's been a little bit of a road. So I came to the Broncos back in 2008. So I've been here for 15 years. I've seen a lot of changes. We were here on the last iteration with you guys, right, back in 2013. And before that, I was with the Falcons from 2001 to 2008. And then before that, Home Depot. So I've been doing IT since 1990. So for a hot minute, I've been doing this technical world. So, but to build upon Hailey, yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind. Like I was talking this morning to somebody, and he said, Russ, every year now it seems like I'm constantly saying, this summer's the busiest summer since I've been here. Well, we've been saying this for the last 3 or 4 years. It's always like it's picking up. But the energy. All the new tech is fantastic, right? We'll dive into that. But the energy of the whole new ownership group, and as Hailey said, Damani leading the charge, and all the other synergies coming together. Yeah, my blood pressure's up a little bit with the first launch tomorrow, so that's exciting.
You and me both.
Yeah. So
Right.
it'll be nice once we kick off the game tomorrow and everything's rolling by the second quarter, right? In my mind, I kind of earmark those little milestones throughout the day, right? And I know, just like Hailey, how the day is going to go depending if my phone's blowing up in the morning. But
Yep.
Right.
but I love the Broncos. It's a family. It's a small company, really. Quick fact, here on game day, we blow up and we become like the 14th largest city in Colorado, equivalent to that, right?
That's
so
fun fact.
so it's kind of neat when you think
Yeah.
about it that way.
Yeah.
A little scary at the same time, but
Yeah.
All in one stadium is
all in one
Yeah.
stadium. Right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you were in IT pretty much your whole professional career then. Did you always like sports too? Like, have you always been, I know you mentioned Home Depot and the Falcons, which, I mean, there's a connection there, right, between the two, but is it always sports kind of was a part of it? Or?
Yeah, you know what? I was going to school back in Atlanta, Kennesaw State, and I was in the Coast Guard prior to that. Got out, went to school, was a lifeguard for a summer, and realized I really got to go work and do something. And then I was going to school to be a teacher, but I wanted to coach, and I like kids and I like sports, and but then I quickly realized, okay, I don't know if the teaching thing's for me, but I always gravitated to the tech world, even in the Coast Guard, and so after that I just stuck with IT, and then that's been my journey ever since. But I like super challenging because it's always changing up. Like, if there's anything about IT, you're not stagnant. You're always trying to look a little bit forward ahead, right? And we're trying to stay ahead of the business folks a little bit so we can deliver the things they want to deliver, like this kind of stuff, right? So that part is exciting to me.
I feel like that's almost something maybe you have in common too. Like, we know, being in marketing too, it's almost that same type of thing where I was even cleaning through my house the other day and went across some old marketing books from when I graduated college 17 years ago, but I don't have to bring that up. But so you're looking through it and it's like, oh, there's nothing in here about Google AdWords, but it's one of those common IT. I feel like IT and marketing are always, you can never stay relaxed too much. There's always something new coming out.
You got to think one step ahead.
Yeah, true statement.
So
and everything's constantly changing in the technology world and upgrading, and you've obviously got a big upgrade at the stadium this year. We mentioned it's 72 feet tall by 225 feet wide, and that's one of the 25 new displays installed at the stadium this year. From an IT perspective, what was it like getting all that stuff installed and kind of turned on and getting ready to go for, your first preseason game?
Yeah, let me give you. So let's jump back in time a little bit to late last summer and through the fall, and so we did the big upgrade with you guys back in 2013, and so, but doing our due diligence, right? It's $100 million uplift to this place, so you want to make sure you pick the right product. So even back then, we're meeting with all the different vendors, what's going to work, what's not going to work. But honestly, you guys DAC had great support for the last 10 years. So that part, that was kind of a little mentally in your brain. You're like, okay, check. Like, the support side's good, right? So kudos to you guys on that part. But we looked at all the different tech, and then at that point, it's okay. We're going to go with DAC. This is what we want, but we didn't know all what we wanted at that point, right? So we're looking at the clubs. We're going through. We have some older rear projection screens. We know those guys got to go. And we wanted bigger screens, right? And we wanted brighter screens. And then we started just walking around. We're like, can we fit this in? Can we swap out those old video TV boards and put a DAC? So it kind of blossomed along the way. And so now we got all these different DAC boards, which is fantastic, right? And we don't have to go back next year and say, we only upgraded 2 in the club. We didn't upgrade the other 3, right? So that part, I kind of think ownership and our CFO and Damani and everybody kind of collaborating and kind of coming to the same page from a vision perspective. But just so then fast forward a couple months later, we order the gear. Then me and talking to Pat Jordan, Jeremy, and Aaron, all that whole crew, they're like, so my IT world has been disrupted since the pandemic with all the shipping, right? Okay. And so that part, I mean, I can order some network switches and I don't get them for a year. That is hard. Number one, it's hard to budget for, so that's different. And number two, you got to make sure you're ordering now what you really need a year from now. Well, that's a little bit challenging. And just a peek behind the scenes, all these boards take a lot of data like that. Like it takes a lot of data to drive all these things, right? So we wanted to make sure we were out ahead of that. But I won't say that we weren't nervous about the shipping and lead times, getting it all in here, right? You guys comforted us there, but still, I've seen it because I'm ordering tech gear. Chips are delayed, and so we saw some of that. So, but collaboration with you guys, it was great. The gear did arrive on time. The construction started right after the season. Literally, the walls were being knocked down the day, like Monday after the last game.
It's go time.
It was go time. It was go time. But so there was a little bit of angst built up a little bit, right?
Just
like,
a smidge.
Just a smidge. Oh my goodness, yeah. But some of that does, it worries you in the background because in the new, they want everything turned on by tomorrow. Right now we're here. Now it's tomorrow.
Now
it's
it
like,
is
holy
tomorrow.
cow! All right.
And even then, maybe to throw it back to you, Hailey, is you came in in January then,
January,
right?
Yep.
So when you came in, was it kind of? I mean, there was a lot of stuff obviously still being torn down, even or construction going on. Was it just, hey, keep looking at these conceptuals to kind of get an idea what you're going to get to work with, or how did that transition kind
Yes,
of go?
it was more like we're waiting for everything to get set up. Our team didn't have access to the control room yet to actually test anything out. So we were playing around with packages, playing around with, okay, we think this is what it's going to look like, a render. And it wasn't until just really, a few short weeks ago, we started seeing it live, testing it.
Yep.
We just released a launch video of the scoreboard just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing, but it's been a race, right? Because as soon as everything opened up, we moved in immediately, started testing, and the team has been working round the clock to make sure we are game day ready so that we
Game day
can,
ready.
but we flip
Game
the
day
light
ready.
switch and everything just turns on.
Yeah. You always have that moment when you, like, even the smaller boards in the clubs, right? Not even the big board, but when you go to turn them on and you're like, come on, close your eyes.
Yes.
Okay, it's working, right? Might need to be optimized and those kind of things, right? That's where you guys kind of help us out with that, but still, it's alive and the heartbeat's pumping.
Yeah. And we were here last time about 3 weeks ago, and we talked with Pat and Nick, and they kind of said the same thing about conceptuals. They go, when we're going through game looks, we have it on a laptop, right?
Yeah.
You see it, and he goes, until we fired up, we said, maybe we don't need that lower third to be, what was it, 10 feet tall or whatever it was. And he's like, sometimes you don't get to finalize your look until you actually see it turn on and then make it.
Yesterday, I was with Nick, and we were just looking at kind of the alignment of some of the logos. We were still playing around with it yesterday.
Yeah, and
But you have to see it on the board, right?
Yes.
Seeing it
Right.
on a render
Doesn't.
on your screen does not work.
No.
Yeah. And once you saw kind of everything on the board, did your mind kind of start racing towards, okay, we've got certain sponsorships or we've got certain content ideas we want to do, or where did it kind of start from there once it was turned
All
on?
the above. So once we finally saw the board, the first reaction was, oh, it's big. It's really,
really
it's
big.
really big, which is great. So it was more, okay, now what can we do with this real estate, right? What can we do with this real estate from a full swipe, right, for that full kind of graphics package to get the fans on their feet? What are the ways with this type of real estate? How can we elevate our partners, right, in a different way? And so there's just a lot of juices flowing right now. And what else can we do to deliver? First, we want to make sure we are inspiring our football team. And so how do we use this space again for on game day tomorrow for all the right uses that they need to help them and secure that dub? But then there's so many other things we can do with it. And then even goes beyond game day, right? Empower Field at Mile High is a destination. So how does this become a differentiating factor, competitive advantage for events, concerts, right? All sorts of things. So again, there are a lot of things to think about. I feel like we're only scratching the surface so far, and we're going to learn more and be able to test more too.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious even from your perspective then of coming in from, not a sports related, but you've probably been to games and different things like that. And we always ask people, when you go to other games, you start looking at boards differently. Once I thought it was the Daktronics curse, but the more podcasts we do, it turns out it's just like an industry curse. When you're with friends and you're like, oh, that's a cool data layout they got over there.
Yes.
Or is that a 4mm display? And they all tell you to be quiet. But you coming in, did you kind of have ideas like from stuff you had maybe seen at other games, or kind of how do you get to piece together what you want to be on the board,
I'll be honest. So I've been to different events, games, coming at it from a fan perspective. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That looks good. I think now I can't unsee things. And so I'll go to a basketball game. I'll go to a baseball game. And my son's always like, Mom, put the phone away. I'm like videoing their board. I'm like, oh, that's a great feature. That was a really cool swipe. And he's like, Mom, stop. And so it makes you think like, oh, well, let me think about how can I replicate this, but even better for the Broncos.
And do you have to kind of bring those ideas back and say, hey, Russ, this is an idea. Is this possible with our technology? Or how do you bring those ideas to the team?
Not yet, soon, right? So I take a lot of different videos, and so even just the other day, we were at San Francisco at kind of a preseason game. I remember seeing a feature. I'm like, oh, that's cool. We should think about something different. So eventually, yes, once we start, what we'll do is we'll make a list of things that we like, prioritize, and then we'll need to meet with Russ and team on what we can do technology-wise.
Yeah, let me just a quick tangent. So I haven't even met Hailey yet. She was here in the back, or I don't think we met, but I'm like, I got to tap her brain. So we flew out to California, look at this other type of technology. But
the first few weeks when I started,
she was still in LA, and so she drove down there to meet. I'm like, Hailey, if you can come out, because I need your brain on this. Like, let's see if it's any good or not, right? But even then, she didn't say, yeah, Russ, no, I'm moving out there. She could have said that, and it could have just, but I wanted her brain to be in there, right? Because we want those impactful things, and it was good enough to take a trip, and I just appreciated her not even knowing me at that point. Like, who am I meeting at this
It
place?
was the day before my movers arrived.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, wow.
A little high strung maybe at that point.
Yeah, so I'll give her kudos and then like just diving in, right? And I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm going to be out there. Drive down, and LA traffic is not the easiest to get around, right?
No,
so
sure.
So I give her
But
kudos
it was
for that.
fun because new tech is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? New
Yes.
tech is fun, and it's more how do you deliver on something engaging, surprising for the fan, and again, it's back to like how do you stay a step ahead? How do you surprise them? It was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You surprise them with a big TV remote to turn the display.
Yeah.
Right?
You're kind of the brainchild behind that. We were mentioning earlier that we saw the video out
Yeah.
The
on
unveil, yeah.
Twitter X or whatever you want to call it. Saw it out
Whatever
there.
it's called these
Whatever it
days.
is
Right.
now, yeah, either one
Yeah.
of those. But you know what I'm talking about. But we saw that, and it was pretty funny. But we kind of see some people, I would say, take to that. Like, how do you find a creative way to show a new video board?
Right.
So how did that idea come about, or was
Well-
it because it was like we're stuck on last year's channel? We got
Yeah.
I
Yes.
can't change it,
Yeah.
right? But
I'm a big believer in oftentimes fans or whomever audience needs to see kind of a before and after.
yes,
Before afters are very powerful when you see that transformation. So we first start with the video. So the video starts with at the bottom half, right? Kind of the old dimensions of the scoreboard. And you need that reminder. And then
wasn't like this,
No,
like-
and then you need that transformation, that flip where all of a sudden, like at the snap, it takes over the full screen. You're like, holy moly, that thing is massive.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it got down to it'd be funny where the old remote is just too small. You need a giant remote to match the giant screen.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it came. But it was also just a good joint brainstorming. And those are the best where everyone starts spitballing
Throwing
all sorts of
ideas out.
ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, no idea's a bad idea. Let's work through
Yeah.
it and see what else can come of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it went from 40 feet tall to 72 feet tall, so got a lot of extra height on
Yes.
that.
It's that reminders. I mean, in some we see it a lot. Even in colleges, they'll do something similar where it's like, I mean, it's definitely not this big, but when they come out, like you said, you got to remind the fans, yeah, this may look big, and you always thought it was,
Right.
but it was actually just this. And
Yes.
I'm not sure if this is a question for either of you, but it was, a big deciding factor. I think we'd heard from Pat maybe was it was long and narrow last time before this
Sure.
upgrade, but the big focus on making sure that it got taller so you could hit 16 by 9, do more videos next to each other. Was that maybe a part? I know you were probably interested in as well too with the layouts, but
Yeah.
IT perspective,
Yeah,
making
that-
sure there's 16 by 9 because it's the largest 16 by 9 in the NFL.
Largest 16 by 9
It is.
replay
Yeah,
screen.
he's
in the
he's
NFL,
always
yeah.
the stats and data guy, so I just gotta look at him as I'm asking out loud. But yeah, was that kind of a big part of it? Like you need to be taller, and I mean overall,
gotta be
bigger,
optimized.
But it's got to be
Yeah.
optimized for the type of
Optimized,
stuff
yeah.
you're going to show on
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, and so when we rolled out that last board, it wasn't too long into that. We're like, the format's not quite optimal, right? And so I know they thought about that the last decade, trying to get a 16 by 9 screen in there. I will say that it doesn't look like as you see it now. It looks like it should have been there, right? It's not out of place, right, when we're looking at it. But when it was being constructed, and you saw the guys, I know this is a little off topic, but the guys were walking around inside, right, on the levels. You're like, oh my goodness, they're so tiny in there,
Right.
right? Like it was pretty. That gave you perspective on holy cow, that is a big board. But that to Hailey's point, getting an enhanced solution for our sponsors up there, getting football, because sometimes we would have the football picture was a little shrunk down compared
yeah.
to what, right? I mean, you're not letterboxing, but kind of in
Yeah.
that regard.
It has to
And so
fit.
this is a much better format all the way around, and a more of a 16 by 9 format. So that makes it easier. Right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
in the last podcast, we kind of talked about how you're going to kind of carve up the display and use different areas of it for different
Yes.
things, and that's probably something you're still working on, or
Yes.
you've got a pretty good idea by now. I mean, the season's coming up, but
We've got an idea, and I think we're going to test along the way, right? So we can start with that kind of real estate. We can two-box things. And so
Oh,
how do we
yeah.
make sure we're delivering on a view that perhaps football needs, but then also some entertaining content on the side, vice versa. There are different ways we can play with that real estate, but we're already thinking about two-boxing that you're going to start to see pretty early in the season.
Kind of a fun topic we had to talk about was, I mean, we're mentioning it getting taller, but there was the whole thing about Bucky being
yeah.
taken off the
Yes.
top. I think I remember seeing videos on social media of when the crane came up.
Yes.
Is there any fun story that happened with that? I mean, we were debating of, where did he go or what
Right.
happened? Like, and then bringing him back seemed to be, I would say they weren't pivotal moments, but they're like fun
they kinda
milestones,
were.
right?
Yeah.
What I would say is during our off season, the scoreboard got upgraded. So that's time for Bucky, who's kind of an OG, right? He's one of our three main mascots. There's Bucky, there's Miles, and there's Thunder. But But we sent Bucky off to a spa. We sent Bucky to a spa. He got some rest and relaxation. He got a little bit of like an upgrade, right? He got some spa treatments. And then when he came back, it was kind of a homecoming. So he is such an integral part of this franchise, of Empower Field at Mile High, part of the game. So yes, it was a big celebration when he came back.
Yeah, it's an icon at the top of the scoreboard there. It really is.
And a funny story, did you see when they were taking him off? And they had to strap him around and everything, but there was a strap around the neck and everything. I'm like, oh, that's,
Are people going to get concerned?
Yeah, but and then there's when he comes back on, because they put him on early.
Yeah.
Like it was just framed up, and then they put Bucky on there.
Early.
Yeah, like there was no panels up yet. There was no. It was like a skeleton. They put Bucky up there. They wanted him back.
People
right?
missed him. Yeah. So it was a shorter spa retreat than he had intended.
Yeah. He's a workaholic. He needed to get back to work.
Needed to get away. Yeah.
And that definitely it seems like tying into even just talking to the two of you now. I think you mentioned it's like a fun small family here. I mean, whether it's the big remote idea or doing the things that you're talking about, Bucky, does some really fun. And even us dealing with everyone at the Broncos, the idea coming out to even do this podcast out by the field with this on the backdrop was great. I mean, we almost feel that same feeling working with you guys from the outside in of kind of how that works. But
oh, thank you. And I know the team feels likewise. I know you guys have been great partners. We've been working together on a number of things, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we've been talking mainly about the main display because it's right here in the background. And you talked about even, Empower Field can do other events or hosting concerts or things like that. And maybe that's where some of these concourse displays come into to play there. Have you thought, how are you going to take that creative experience into the concourse with the new technology there too?
Should we talk about the forced perspective wall?
Oh my gosh,
I'm kind of
On
obsessed.
the list. I saw an early picture of it with the ring on there, and it looked amazing.
It looked amazing. So what I will say is, there's some forced perspective, call it walls, around the world. So I'm incredibly excited that we now get one in Broncos country.
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome. And what I'm hoping as we unveil this is fans are going to see it, they're going to want to look for it. Because what a surprising thing is, you round the corner, you feel like the picture's popping out at you.
Yeah.
So again, this is something also we're just skimming the surface and testing with the content, but there are a lot of ways we can play with it. You're going to see, currently we have one where it's kind of Broncos is the brand copy starts popping out, but we're playing with all sorts of ideas where we're soon delivering where the rings or Super Bowl rings are going to come out. What else can we do? Really, really excited about that forced perspective wall.
And from the IT side, I'm sure that was an easy implementation on the back end.
Super easy. I mean, and I was a fan of the forced perspective. And Jay Roberts, the GM here, he's a big proponent of that. But one thing I'll say, so Pat Jordan told me a little stat the other day, and I think it's a 1.9 millimeter wall, right?
Okay.
We could geek out on you a little bit here. He said it's a 7 by 24, right? 7 on one side, 24 on the other, kind of combines together in the middle at the seam. The resolution of that is almost as big as the big board.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know. He told me that.
That's
So
crazy.
So on the back end to render that video, you need a little bit of horsepower,
horsepower.
right?
Yeah.
So we did. We upped the ante on the back end to help Hailey's team kind of render and give them some time back, right? So nothing. When you hit the button, it's not 5 seconds later the thing is all rendered.
Yes.
Put it up to the board.
Right.
It takes a little bit of time for that. But I didn't know that about the resolution. Like I didn't know the pixels were that close to that board up there.
Right, because that one's a 10 millimeter up there, and it is a 1.9 millimeter there. So it's
Crazy.
getting pixels even tighter and tighter together to give you that clarity on that display.
And I'm excited for it too because our displays have been used for this forced perspective in like Vegas, Times Square, things like that for a long time and everything. And I'm not sure if I've ever seen one in a stadium or arena yet.
Until now.
Until
Right,
now. So
right.
I'm very excited to see it, especially in use at the game tomorrow.
Yeah.
I bet, I don't know, I'm already picturing, because whenever we've done one of these, the first one was at like SLS Casino.
Yeah,
when
there was
one in Vegas, and it was the bar.
there was a 5-sided display
over the top
hanging
of the
over
bar.
the bar.
And it looked like a face was coming in and out of
That's
it.
cool.
But every time you go to see it, I mean, it's already Vegas, a lot of tourists, but everyone's taking pictures next to it, and I can already see that. Like tomorrow, everyone's going to see
That's what I
this
want.
content.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a wow moment, right? It's a pop moment. So you'll see the cameras come out. I do think, and we have limited content on there right now.
Yep.
I mean, we just got the thing going.
Yep.
Yeah.
But to Haley's point, check it out like in the middle of the year.
Sure.
I think it'll be.
I
it'll
think
be
we just
rocking.
loaded it this morning.
Yeah, it really.
Yeah,
the
just
first
to be
video's
game day
running on
ready.
there.
Yeah. And we talk about that with new installations. A lot of times it's like, okay, here's the keys to the car. Let's pull out of the garage and show everybody how shiny it is, and then we're going to drive it later on as we learn more and more and come up with more ideas. Yeah. So
I mean, I do want to make a note in terms of IT, right? IT you guys are like the invisible heroes, right? If things work, no one sees it, right? But there's so much work that people don't see and people don't appreciate. So.
Oh, there we go.
It is, yes.
But it is that. If
Sorry,
we're
like
invisible,
sappy moment.
No, that's
no,
It's
it's all good.
it's very sincere, right? Like things wouldn't go and wouldn't be powered without you and your team.
Oh yeah, but it's a collaborative thing, right? Even this whole process, right? It's not just it's Hailey's team, the creative brains behind it, Pat Jordan, like the actual creative services crew, getting them on board. I mean, the whole scoreboard was ripped. I mean, everything. This is a kind of a rip and replace.
Yeah.
And then we just, but even to you guys in IT on the back end, the facilities guys, like. It's not just a couple brains it's a lot of brains, a lot of hands from a lot of different teams that come together as one to pull it off.
Yeah.
Like you have to, right?
Yeah.
If you don't, you're not going to hit tomorrow's deadline.
Yes.
We're
Right.
going to hit it. So that's
And that's
cool.
kind of a fascinating thing that we always hear about, and I'm kind of curious, and I'm not sure during installation how much your group interacts with the Daktronics project management group, but I know everyone's got to be updated. But with the timeline that this had, right, of having to tear it down now and get it ready, how was it working with, I wouldn't say our staff, but everyone to make sure everyone is on the same page? Because you were already hinting at there's so many groups involved. But like, how was it to see and work with all the different displays getting installed?
From the tech side, so after we placed the order, me and my team, we immediately met with you guys.
Okay.
On the on the IT side, because you have to have all that in place, and I don't want you guys coming out right after the season. Then we're sitting down for the first time brainstorming what that new network, all the data, all the VLAN, all that behind the scenes stuff. So we got to jump on that sooner rather than later. So through the holidays and through those time periods, we were already dialing everything in. So by the time we did start construction, we knew basically. There's still hiccups, there's still glitches, integration pieces, installation pieces, but for the most part, that networking back-end piece was the base of it. The template was laid for that, which was fantastic, but you have to be that way.
Yeah.
So that way, when you start hooking things up, nobody's like, Russ, what's that IP address I'm supposed to have? No, here it all is, right? And then we'll come back and we'll fix things along the way.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, from marketing side, how is it kind of, I know we mentioned, looking at renderings and you're trying to get ready for it, and we've heard sometimes from teams, operators, that they're waiting for everything to go, and then once it's there, now they take over, now they run with it. How is it from the marketing side as things are getting installed?
So on the marketing side, we have a kind of secret, what should I call it? Secret muscle, kind of a secret power, a superpower, and that's kind of Pat Jordan's engineering team.
Okay.
So I feel like they're the translators between all the different wild ideas we have from a graphic standpoint, and then they're able to figure out how to engineer that, how to connect it to make sure we've got the right power and the right infrastructure from Russ's team to make it work. So I do think that's an advantage that we have. We can come up with all crazy ideas, but without that superpower team that we have that is really understands how to translate that to get it to the right specs, to get it on the screen, that's really what's helped us stay on time and be ready to turn on tomorrow.
Yeah, and we've heard, I came out here 10 or 11 years ago to do a round of testimonials and pictures and videos from the last install, and had Pat out there and talked to him too. So obviously I had to talk to him the last time we were out here, but I think someone had said he's the living legend here at the Broncos because everyone kind of knows him in some way, shape, or form, whether it's, I've heard stickers are on the stickers.
Have you seen those?
There's stickers.
I saw some on the test patterns.
Bouncing around the test pattern.
Yes,
Yeah.
he bounces everywhere. There's stickers on laptops, stickers
I
all
have
over
one.
the building.
Oh, nice.
I need to get one.
It's like a
I
rite
know.
of passage. Like you
Yes.
need to, if you're here at the Broncos, you got to have a sticker on your
gotta have
Yeti mug or
Yes.
whatever, right? You got to have
and it
a
has to be a
Jordan
Pat
sticker.
Jordan sticker.
See, that's
There-
okay.
You can get them in color. You can get them in black and white. You can get them in distressed and faded as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a new traveling case for
Yeah,
our
we're gonna
podcast
need
stuff.
one.
We want to get one to stick
Yeah.
on there before we leave.
We can get you one,
one,
yeah.
but there
Nice.
you go.
I'll make one comment to Hailey's point too. I think the talent. All right, so Pat Jordan, Jeremy, Aaron, like none of those guys are new in the field that we're like Hailey's been doing. It's like she's been doing marketing for a long time. It helps to have all that talent backing up the project,
Yeah.
right? And so there's no weak chinks in the armor, basically, right? From my perspective, when we chat with you guys, you guys know exactly what we're talking. Like we're quick to the point, and timing was, timing is important at this, hitting those milestones, hitting those timelines. But I think the talent-wise, Hailey hit it right. Like Pat Jordan, those guys are fantastic, right? And they're great to work with. So kudos and thumbs up for that, for those pieces and parts to come together, right?
So you got each other's backs. It seems like everyone we talk to is very
Yes.
passionate about what they do here.
Yeah,
And it definitely shows.
It does. It absolutely does. And even thinking about some of those sponsorship aspects and what you can do with the board. I know the opposite displays of the main bowl were replaced too in the corners,
Yes.
and they're bigger than they were. They kind of replaced some existing static or
They're
rotational
digital
signs.
now,
Try-
right?
all
So
digital.
instead of trying,
Yeah.
they're all
Yeah.
digital,
Yeah.
which is good.
Any big ideas that you're going to reveal on that one coming up this year?
I think you'll have to come to a game day. and
Okay.
Oh, there we
Yep.
go.
Don't spill
But
the
I
beans.
think
Yeah.
what's good is we can now incorporate more partners.
Okay.
Now with that, with digitally more colors on that end too, which will be good. Also, we can reflect, call it a 360 experience. What you see on the north boards, the two north boards, can also reflect what's seen on the south boards. And then what I want to start to explore, what types of takeovers can we start to do to elevate partners? So you'll start to see some kind of teasing across the season, and then as we learn more, as we understand what partners need, we'll kind of keep adding to it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I always kind of wonder how that looks, because even when, so I've been a DAC, well, I already said 17 years ago when I graduated college bout, so that's when I started DAC right after that. Is like the internal term was moments of exclusivity.
Mhm.
Where
Right.
Yes.
every display goes to a brand or a logo or something, or
Right.
Or
American
touchdown.
flag or
Yeah.
a touchdown. But even back then when we did it, it was like cool, but nothing had this many displays in it
Right.
at the time. So it's like, hey, we can get the ribbon boards and the main video to go together. And now as you look around, you're like, wow, you could really, like you're saying,
With
if
all
you-
these displays, you could have a full takeover, right?
Yeah.
So when you think of like a whole swipe of a color,
you're not
of a-
ignoring that.
No,
Like, you
right,
can't.
and that's just you. It's kind of surround sound all around you, which
Mm-hmm.
is pretty exciting.
And even outside the bowl into some of those club spaces, you can kind of mimic the same type of thing, even for the fans that are,
Yes.
getting some concessions or away from their seat for a moment
Mhm.
type of thing. So
And the
there's
fir-
all those options.
The phrase we've heard, I'm sure this is part of it, but it's the get here early and stay later part of games, because they know that people like to hang out outside of the game at least.
Yep.
So like when was that part of, looking into all the different concourses and getting nice displays out there to make people feel free to come in early before the game, find spots to hang out and still be able to move about during the game? I'm assuming like
Yeah, and we have nice weather a lot of times. So tailgaters, we've always struggled with getting them into the building sooner,
Yep.
rather than everybody hits the gates at 10 minutes till, and the lines are backed
it's a
up, and they're
bottleneck.
yelling at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything we could do there to get them in and getting those experiences elevated in the club. We added an extra board. We took out all the old boards in the club. They're all really nice DAC. Bright boards in there.
Yep.
So even our games in the afternoon when there's sunlight coming in, and the old
Oh, yeah.
the old rear projection would get a little washed out.
Sure.
Now you guys are even at 55%. It's like, whoa! All right, that thing is super bright. So
Yeah.
there's some cool geeky upgrades that go along with just replacing the boards. But I think those kind of things kind of advocate for the consumer coming in early, staying later. We want them to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We want the experience to be elevated and that much better.
Yeah.
all
Here
the
for
way
the
around.
whole entertainment destination,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We do want them to come in earlier. So once they come in early, we have all these displays, lots of content we can feed them. We are basically turning around and flipping the entire game day entertainment kind of on its head. And so there will be activations, many more activations outside the stadium leading into the entrance, just kind of a little bit of the Vegas model, right? You guide people into the casino, so we're going to guide them into the bowl. Once they're in the bowl, we've changed up our entire pregame programming as well. There's going to be different pregame programming every single game.
Okay.
About 2 weeks ago, we released our theme calendar. Every game is going to be themed out.
All
So you're
right.
going to see that reflected in the content and the program.
She's
so
on it.
again, hopefully,
Yeah.
we want people to come in earlier and be ready to cheer on our team.
Yeah, that's exciting.
What's the theme night tomorrow night then? Is it
Next Gen night. So it's going to be kids and family friendly.
Okay.
So you'll
Nice.
see family friendly activations outside the stadium coming in.
Oh, nice.
And then a whole set of programming. We have a junior PA, junior DJ, junior mascot, and then just a lot of fun pregame and halftime programming too.
Yeah, that's kind of teasing to say during the season, if you want to see what happens before every game, it's going to be different. You're going to have to come in and find out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then again, and you can see it anywhere across all the different displays too when we have these performances.
And you mentioned the Vegas feel as you come in. I mean, obviously it makes a lot of sense now with the forced perspective display coming
Yes,
in.
Yes.
But is that something you kind of do maybe from marketing? I know we mentioned you go to other games and see things, but are you looking at, or maybe both of you looking at, Vegas, Times Square, you're looking at all these other things outside of the sports industry to see what you can kind of take from that?
Yes, I think you should take inspiration from everywhere. So anywhere where there's some sort of engagement, customer engagement, fan engagement, consumer engagement, they're doing something to create affinity, and I think there's always opportunity to learn from that.
Because I think that's something we learned. I mean, we've both been in marketing outside of just the podcast, right, for a long time. And it was like 2 years ago, I think, where someone said for a D1 college we were working on, can you send us, like, they want to hear all the stuff we're doing in Vegas and Times Square. And for us, it's always like, yeah, we show the MLB teams what other MLB teams are doing and stuff like that. So it's kind of different to hear that. We're like, yeah, sure, why? And they go, because they want to see what other people are doing with displays. And then hearing you talk today, it's like, from a marketing side, it doesn't always have to be within sports to help out sports people with it.
I mean, Vegas is kind of the entertainment capital, right? I will share there are a few things that we've taken inspiration from. So the way we're thinking about pre-game programming, it's kind of a show before the actual game. That's one. Two, our reveal video for the scoreboard, it was inspired by the Sphere. Right, in Vegas, when they said kind of hello world, we saw that. We're like, oh, we should do something too, and we should make it somewhat surprising. Yes, we're going to show all the great highlights of the plays, but how do we give it a little bit of a funny hook to it too and have it end on impact? You're going to see that. I'm really excited to show off our game opener video. It's a very different feel, much more entertainment feel. So you'll a lot of inspiration from many other areas.
That's exciting. And does that help with even some events maybe outside of football? Is there the things like that you're still involved in with the displays that they do use during concerts? I know they've recently had Ed Sheeran here to do a concert.
And Swift a while
and
back.
Taylor.
You guys have had some big names lately.
Like 85,000 people showed up for Ed. So are you helping with different content on the concerts or other events as well?
Not on that content. Usually those are very led by the promoters and kind of the vision for the show. I will say there's opportunity to take inspiration from there too. We've had a number of shows. One of our performances had a drone show. I was like, ooh, that would be cool, right? That was really cool. It was really cool to see Taylor Swift's concert and her graphics. And the way her use of color, right? So that was a take where I'm like, I'm filing that away. Sometime we can pick that up. So there's, again, anytime where if you feel like someone's creating an experience, there's something to learn.
That's awesome. And then even from, the IT side, when they come in, concerts or whatever it is, are they kind of looking to you to help hook stuff up still, or are they kind of take it over themselves? Or?
Yeah, Hailey's right. It all depends on their team. So Wi-Fi, I don't have a roof, so I don't have Wi-Fi right down, for 10,000 people. I got some on the field wall. We turn those on, but those don't penetrate as far as we want. It depends on the promoter if they allow us to put some on their sound stages or up on the front of the stage kind of thing. Right, but you deal with it that way. A little tidbit, though, for Ed Sheeran, we had, some weather came in.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys hear about,
we heard there was some delays.
We weren't planning on using the board, right, because he had his own screens up there. But for the lightning delay, we turned it on. We turned the new board on during a lightning storm. Anyway. But it worked great, and we're like, oh, look at that. That's fantastic.
I got their attention.
The weather, kind of like today, we're keeping dry under the tent here, but the weather is coming through, and you can't control that, right?
No, that's right.
And maybe kind of before we even wrap up, I'm thinking of, at the end of these podcasts, we always ask our guests to give a little bit of advice of what would they give to someone who's maybe going through something similar to what they went through. So no, we can start with IT side. Is there, if anyone's going through, everything we've talked about today, a major overhaul or upgrade, everything you learned this process, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I collaborative, just the whole collaboration between all the teams is key to delivering your time windows, right, and delivering the project on time. I'd say that, but do the due diligence on the back. Look at the other vendors that are out there, right, and see what they have to offer, and then. You guys said it earlier when you said, don't just call the other NFL clubs. Look and see what MLB's doing. Look and see what soccer stadiums are doing. They have big event, even college teams if they come up with something, right? Like, be open-minded to that. And then I think where you think you're going to be, you got to open that box, lit up a little bit, and it might go a little further than where you thought you were going to go, right? Be open to that, I think.
Then, hey, how about you? From the marketing side, you almost have like two. What would you say from the marketing side for new boards, but also someone in marketing coming into a team for the first time? You kind of got a double side of it.
So there was a lot to learn coming in new, but I would say from a marketing side content perspective, when you go through an overhaul and all of a sudden you basically double the real estate, you have to fight the urge to jam in with all sorts of things. So we had to be really disciplined about taking a step back. Now that with this real estate, how do we get an opportunity to clean it up for the fan? How do we look at opportunities to make sure everything you put on the board pops in the right way, you're directing the eyes in the right way? And so we had to really work hard and collaboratively internally on how do we clean up. If you can see there's color, but there's color very kind of done very strategically to make sure when we add in color, that color's popping, right? How do we clean up the board so that it's clean, it's visible,
It's not
and
overwhelming.
It's not
kind of.
overwhelming,
Yeah.
and it's crisp.
Yeah.
And that did take a lot of time, and it's taken rounds, and we still kind of explore. We may not get it quite right,
Yeah.
but that was a big exercise, and it took a while to really land it where we landed. And I'm very happy with it.
And then probably a little more tweaking again once you saw.
Oh,
how
I'm
they
sure
work
we're
on
going to
the
be
boards.
tweaking.
Yeah.
Yes.
It seemed like every other week Hailey was coming in and we were talking about the scoreboard, the lat, and everything. Every time it was a little bit different.
It was.
I mean,
It was
here
like
it
a
comes.
small
And
change.
I'm
People
oh,
are like,
that's
"What
different."
changed?"
Yeah. But she,
Yeah.
detail, right, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But I'm like, but it's going to be a great show for tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's
There's
awesome.
no doubt about
I'm
it.
very excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it tomorrow night as well. And also, just thank you for taking the time to come talk to us and
Yeah.
share all these ideas and give us a little teaser of what we might see. It's certainly piqued my interest for tomorrow night.
And
So
thanks
Hailey,
for
Russ,
braving
thank you.
braving the weather here
Yes.
to join us under
Well,
this.
likewise, you guys too.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
got some expensive equipment here. So.
Yeah, Dylan will be take care of it later.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. All
Excellent.
right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you guys.
Thanks.